Alright guys, welcome to the channel and welcome to this brand new live stream. This is going to be the second in my Wednesday live stream series. I don't know if Wednesday is going to be the set day for these live streams, but I do want to shoot to get these streams out at least once a week. For those who are watching right now, I do want to say that I did record a brand new episode of the United States, so make sure to watch that whenever it comes out. I'll try to get it out. Today's Wednesday, so I'll try to get it out by about Friday. But anyway, hello to all that are joining just now. Welcome all. I'm seeing the chat is already firing up, and today we are joined by my good friend Tripster from Ohio. He is studying. I believe it's economics in college. So let me go ahead and unmute the boy, and then we will go ahead and get where am I? Where did I go? Where did I go? Where did I go? All right, there we go. And I will unmute him, and then I'll. But go ahead and introduce yourself, Tripster. Hello. He muted himself.
Yeah, I muted myself. Yeah, my phone touchscreen was not responding as easily as I would have liked. So I'm joining you guys by phone today. I am Tripster60, and I am a college student senior at Ohio State University. I study economics. Politics, not necessarily my game, nor my name, but it's something I know a little thing about. There's a question in the comment section. Where's Gabe? Are we going to address that, or I have no clue?
Yeah, let me go ahead and address that real quick. Gabe was supposed to join us today, and we were actually... the plan was that we were going to discuss Brazil and like just the situation that's going on in Brazil and everything. But he unfortunately was not able to make it today. So it is just going to be with Tripster. But next time, I'm definitely going to try to get a Gabe in there, and then I'll work with him with his schedule, because it's mostly because his schedule did not allow him to join us. So I am sorry that... Musa Ripper says PG's mic is way too loud and the other guy is way too quiet. I love having to set up live streams.
Sound.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and
fix that. You are a bit loud for some reason now, actually. But I kind of turn you down, honestly. I don't know. Actually, see if I can turn myself up while you're turning everything else around.
Yeah, let me fix that real quick. I think I fixed it. And then apparently you're too quiet, because I set the OBS to have you be super quiet because I could hear background noise. But I guess that might work.
You hear background noise on my side?
On the mic, but I don't think the OBS doesn't say that it's picking it up.
I can increase my sensitivity. How's it sound now?
Should sound okay. On the mic.
Noise suppression? How about now?
It sounds okay. I kind of wait for the chat to kind of say, like, yeah, that's cool. Because I can't really, like, I don't have anything to hear it on my side. Need to figure out a way to do that.
Well, to anyone in the chat, okay, sounds about right.
Awesome. Yeah, he said it sounds about right.
Awesome. Well, to anyone watching, remember to drop a like on the video. It helps us greatly.
Yeah, and, if you guys want to see more of this, just go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and we will definitely try to get. I get a bit autistic about audio. So do I. I feel that.
Hey, I don't blame you, man.
But yeah, everyone go ahead and leave a like. Leave a like, subscribe, and just we'll get on. I like how we keep interrupting each other.
Yeah, you ever watch a podcast, right? And where like someone's got like the audio completely way messed up. Like one person's really loud, other person's really quiet, and so you're just trying to listen to it while you're doing almost something else. And you're like, why is this one person super loud and another person not? That messes with me too, because it's like I don't want to put the sound up because one person's so loud that it's like ear rape, but then I also can't hear the other person. So like, then what do I need to just don't watch?
Yeah,
like what you're telling me. Okay, so let's get into it. What is the first thing you want to do?
All right, first thing that we're going to be talking about, I think we're going to be talking about the 2022 election today, because there's a couple of things that we're going to be covering in this live stream. So first one is going to be the 2022 election. We're going to be covering the House. We're going to be talking about the Senate. House we're kind of like indecisive about, because I think it's way too early to really call or even say anything about the House. At least in my opinion, it is a little too early. With the Senate, it's a bit easier option because because it is a statewide election and you can actually predict those a little bit more accurately, I guess. But also do want to talk about, we can talk about potential flips in the Senate and possibly the House, turnout compared to 2020 and maybe even 2018, and then possibly Trumpism if that if time allows. But then after that, we can talk about CPAC, just kind of like our thoughts on CPAC, chat's thoughts on CPAC. And then after CPAC, don't want to spend too much time talking about CPAC, but because there's a couple of polls that we saw about Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis and Ted Cruz, there's a couple of candidates that we can even talk about in the 2024 election, and we can go off of the poll that I actually took on my community tab about the potential 2024 nominees. But then
Oh, on your
on
own
the
tab? With that.
well, on my community tab on my channel. But then in the
Let me take a
House,
vote on this one.
on the House, we actually have a couple of candidates that we're going to be talking about, including Liz Cheney, Lauren Boebert, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, as controversial as that woman is. And then the Senate, we do have a really full list of candidates that we're going to be talking about, especially the ones that voted for impeachment of Donald Trump after he left office. And then we have governorships, Trumpism, and then polling on who will lead the party coming up in 2024. But other than that, Tripster, you can go ahead and lead us off.
So first things first, I think let's get straight off with what is the most recent thing I think most people are kind of focused on both sides. The House members that are a little bit reveling in the fame at the moment. You have a couple people, you have your Dan Crenshaws, you have your Liz Cheney's, your Pierre Myers, your Adam Kinzinger, and they all represent their own various districts in which they feel kind of safe, right? But I think something that's happening on both the left and the right is a rise of populism. And with it, there's also a rise of party politics and a lot more interest in what happens in the primaries. And primaries start a year before the actual reelection. So we can start talking about a couple of seats already. Adam Kinzinger, Peter Meyer, Liz Cheney, Lauren Boebert, Young Kim of California. She actually ran in 2018 and lost. Came back in 2021 again, and then the first thing she did was vote against Trump, which is like you wrote his coattails and then do that. Peter Meyer actually ran, oddly enough, to replace what was thought as a rhino in what was his name? The person from Michigan that everyone, if you're like a libertarian, you tend to
Justin Amash.
Yeah, Justin Amash, right? And Peter Meyer ran as like, oh, I'm going to be the more pro-Trumpian guy because actually, Justin Amash was not a very big pro-Trump guy, and that's why he was being targeted and primaried. Well, the very same day, basically, he got inaugurated into the seat, he had already voted to basically censure the election. Well, not censure election, but basically said it was correct. Then he threw the president under the bus and then voted for impeachment, which, again, is exactly the same reason his predecessor was basically removed from office, put into an early public retirement, so to speak, after 9 years of the job. It's almost weird that we have people like Peter Meyer in the party, given the fact that he ran as this supposed correction to a possible rhino, and then he ends up becoming rhino himself. He's going to be one of the hot seats. He's going to be in the hot seat for his entire term, for sure, in Michigan. Not very popular. It's going to be targeted. Liz Cheney, she's also going to be very, very tough to keep her seat. I mean, she may have a lot of that connection to a former vice president. You would think with all the financial help that she may have for such a small district, she may be safe. But with all the rural counties, the fact that she has the only at-large seat in Wyoming, there's a lot of people who aren't exactly happy with her decision and what kind of vote she tried to do and the words that she said, and she gets booed. I think it kind of showcases something more important than just her seat in her own state. I think for once, this is actually a ingoing kind of embattled civil war between the Republican Party of sorts on a lot of different principles. Are we the party of George W. Bush or Ronald Reagan, or is this a new era for a new party? Is it something we're going to be seeing more of in the day of today? Is Trumpism really going to stay? I think if you're looking to see whether or not that is the case, Liz Cheney's district, along with Adam Kinzinger's district and Peter Meyer, are the cases that you really should be looking for. Likewise, though, when it comes to the House, Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, these are two people who are very different stripes of the politician. They're the newer strain that you kind of saw on the left with, the squad. Well, this is kind of the Republicans' version of the squad. They were always talking about, how the Republicans are owning a lot more women. Well, here are a couple women who loud, they're proud, and they are definitely out about what they believe in. As such, this make them a big target for either the establishment on the right or the establishment on the left. So the primaries for Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm probably going to be looking at that. And in the general election, I would say Lauren Boebert is going to be incredibly vulnerable. I feel like Democrats will target her almost immediately, just because of how big of a profile she's gotten herself into.
Okay.
That is my summary of the House for 2022.
So I have an article that I'm pulling up right here, and basically, I'm just now pulling it up for chat. So it says a large share of Republicans want Trump to remain head of the party. CNBC survey says. So if we can actually kind of look at it, it says that 54% of Americans want Trump to remove himself from politics entirely. That was a sentiment of 81% of Democrats and 47% of independents, but only 26% of Republicans. When it comes to Republicans, 74% say they want him to stay active in some way, including 48% who want him to remain head of the Republican Party, 11% who want him to start a new third party, and 12% who say that he should remain active in politics, but not as the head of any party. So, in terms of like whether it's a civil war or not, and at CPAC, who was it? Rick Scott basically said the Civil War is canceled. But
I can't determine that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, that's still like a quarter of Republicans that you would need to vote for a Republican candidate, and then that's I guess where it kind of comes into Trumpism.
Well, now here's the thing, right? So you have 26, 24% of those people, 4% of those people, right, may not support Trumpism. But the problem with that is, are these people even going out to vote to begin with? Are they really substantial? Do they outnumber the potential gains you may get from adopting Trumpism, per se? And it's a bit of a transit. The long-term policies of Trump are for the common people, which is very different from what the Republican elite would usually pursue. And as such, it's also had a giant electoral impact on the map. Whereas Republicans have always dominated suburbs, they may not do so much now, but their leads in, like, say, rural areas are increasing more and more, and they're actually making inroads into the inner city communities. It's really something that we can't really see how it's going to turn out, which one has more numbers. I know in 2020, we definitely saw the suburbs in some places that are very key, like in Pennsylvania or in Michigan. Supposedly they flipped. But then you saw in places like Wisconsin where it was very, very close. Where it's like, yeah, the gains from Trumpism almost outweighed the cost, if any of it. And so we are losing some people that used to identify as loosely Republican, right? But gaining some pretty staunch cultural activists who are making some big inroads in a lot of different communities and doing a lot of change. So I say the Civil War is not canceled yet because the money is not on the side of the Trumpist people.
Yeah.
But the energy is on the side of people who support Trumpism. A lot of the establishment doesn't have any energy and they don't really fight. And as such, they may be caught by surprise at what happens with these elections in the primaries. And if they think they can just corral the support of energy behind very establishment candidates, just look at Georgia. For what really happened when you do stuff like that, it doesn't work that way. You can't just denigrate your base, not give what they want, and then expect to get that support. That's going to get you to win. And if the Republican Party says, well, it's canceled, and then you run a bunch of milquetoast Republicans, well, we'll probably have Democrats control the House and the Senate for the foreseeable future.
See, that's the thing is whenever it comes to because on one hand they have these people who are basically like, it's always about being anti-Trump because it's about Trump, and that's the weird thing about this is that this is basically
Project Republicans.
Yeah, it's like Lincoln Project Republicans, never Trumpers. And the
Mitt
thing about that
Romney.
is that it's either because there's basically only two paths now for the Republican Party. You know, you can go back to the basically to the era of just like, you know, establishment Republicans. And because we have establishment Democrats and we have the establishment Republicans. And a lot of Republicans, and especially, I mean, with the 75% of Republicans that want Trump to stay active in the party, they basically don't want to go back to that Reaganist, like Bush era of politics where, you know, it was always about, you know, tax cuts and I mean Trumpism is about tax cuts, but it was always about I guess Republicans just they never kind of like moved away from Ronald Reagan. They wanted to go back to that, you know, carry on the policies similar to that of Ronald Reagan. But a lot of people now have already realized, and even a lot of younger Republicans have said, like, that Ronald Reagan wasn't exactly the best president. And what are your thoughts on Reagan? Like, should like do you if the Republicans were to go back to the Ronald Reagan style of politics, like, do you think that would help them or do you think that would hurt them?
I think that would hurt them. My actual take on politics actually is that everything is not about, you know, it's funny, but a lot of these Reaganite Republicans actually do nothing to conserve anything. Um, it's absolutely kind of ironic. The reason Reagan is remotely effective at what he was doing is that Republicans put up a huge cultural fight. It wasn't just about the ideas and the ideals and the politics of it, um, but more about how do you get those ideas and ideals out to the public to get people to persuade. Trumpism is essentially all about that. And so we saw in 2020, there was that whole narrative. There's in 2016, same thing. You had the meme culture. You had all these people saying this, do that, say that thing, make this meme, make this thing, make fun of leftists here, make this argument here, go out into the inner cities and do this and say whatever's on your mind. Um, that is what got a lot of these people energetic. And they don't want to go back to the same type of Republican who was going to be like, well, I have the corporate establishment. We're just going to do a couple things, maybe a rehearsed speech or two. It doesn't fit in today's realm because Republicans don't have that establishment behind them. And by that, I mean, like, they don't have the money. They don't control the presses. They don't control any of the companies that you would think they should be able to control. So they are actually at a very big disadvantage if they were to try to do something like that, because Democrats are going to have a lead on that. They have Hollywood on their side. They have big tech on their side. They have all these giant corporations on their side. If they were to try to go back to a Ronald Reagan era thing, I mean, how would you do that? The culture is left so much more away from that whole godly aspect. The whole social conservatism movement itself is unarmed.
So I kind of want to move on to a kind of different question for you, and basically, you know, I'm not going to school for this yet, but I kind of study these things on sometimes on a political science level. So one of my questions for you is: are you at all familiar with the party system, like the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth political
Oh,
party system?
actually, no, I don't know.
So basically, the party system is a periodization of American politics. And there have been six political party systems. And I'm going to go ahead and let me go ahead and go to the fourth or so I'm going to go to the first. So I'm going to kind of like get this. I'm going to kind of like summarize this for people who are watching right now. I'm pulling it up right now. So basically, the party system is basically the era periodization of American politics, of political party dominance, I guess. And so the first one, and you may have learned this in, you know, back in I think middle school or something like that. So that's why it's some people may not know about this. So the first one was dominated by Republicans and Federalists, and then at some point it was I think Republicans were also known as anti-federalists.
Yep.
So the Federalists, basically, uh, they were created by Alexander Hamilton, um, and I guess the Federalists were for more. Yeah, the Federalists were basically for a stronger government, and then the Anti-Federalists were saying like, no, we don't need a stronger federal government. We need more power to go to the states.
Yeah.
And then the second one was basically dominated by the Democrats and the Whigs, and I believe the third. No, it actually wasn't. So the Democrats and the Whigs. This was from 1828 to 1852, and then that was dominated by Democrats and the Whigs. The Democrats were, I think, they were formed back in the 1820s, and then the third party system.
1824 as a response to the Federalists denying Jackson the chance to be president through the Electoral College.
Yeah. And then the third was dominated by the Democrats, Republicans, and the Populists. And this one took place between 1856 and 1892. And that was actually the third party system was during the Civil War. So that's whenever the Democrats start. That's the third party system is essentially whenever Democrats had that hold on the South. So I'm going to go ahead and skip
the South all the way. They had a hold on the South from 1824 to 1994.
Yeah, exactly. And then after the third party system, the fifth and then the sixth, or actually the fifth party system was completely dominated by the Democrats. This is whenever the fifth party system was actually known whenever FDR basically had that New Deal policy, and this was basically the New Deal era, and they called it the New Deal Coalition. And this was during the Great Depression, after the Great Depression had already started, and then basically the cultural, just historical standpoint of America basically changed from that point on. And then the sixth party system was
so weird because it's more dominated. It was funny. Republicans actually dominated the city area in this time span, and then the suburbs. But then they didn't do well in the rural areas.
Yeah.
Or with the working class. But if you look at the sixth party system, that is exactly the opposite.
Yeah, so if we go into the sixth party system,
most of the universities were completely controlled by Republicans around this time. So the actual culture was Republican. People who control Hollywood were Republican in this time span. But then you go to the 80s and 90s, and it's all completely flipped.
Yeah. And then so the sixth party system is essentially the system that we are in right now. And the way Wikipedia, take this with a grain of salt because it's Wikipedia, it says opinions differ on whether the six party system may have begun, with the suggested dates ranging between the 60s, 70s, and 80s. The sixth party system is apparently, last time I actually checked on it, I guess I thought it started back in 1968, but now it says 1980. So see, again, take it with a grain of salt. But basically, this is whenever we start to see where we're at now, where we see the party divide between red and blue, because before in the fifth party system that was not the case. I mean, it was more like, this is the Democrats are more for like expanding Social Security, the New Deal, and then Lyndon Johnson's Great Society was also a part of the fifth party system. But after 1968, whenever Richard Nixon was elected in the 1968 election, that's whenever we started to see the Republicans start to take hold of the policies that they are for right now. More, like reducing taxes, even though Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan actually increased taxes. So there's a little bit of hypocrisy there, but at least since 1980, we started to see this red and blue divide instead of, north and south, or even along racial lines. But even though race is still a factor in this party system that we're in right now, and essentially my whole point that I'm getting to, I'm sorry that I've kind of like been explaining for 5 minutes on this. But my whole point on this is that my theory, and I will know whether I am right or wrong, so this video will be up 5 years from now, 10 years from now, just to kind of prove me right or wrong. My theory is that we are entering the seventh party system, and there are actually a couple of political scientists that actually kind of see the exact same thing that I do. I haven't written a paper on it, I honestly need to. But basically, it says that there's an agreement among scholars that the six-party system features strong division between Democratic and Republican parties, which are rooted in socioeconomic, class, cultural, and racial issues and the proper role of government. Now, I think some of those issues have still changed. Now, even though it's still kind of divided on a socioeconomic class and more or less a racial issue. Um, I think the proper role of government is kind of like changed a little bit because Republicans are always about smaller government, smaller this, smaller that, but especially with COVID and the fact that the fifth party system started in 1932. Let me actually check real quick. It says 1932. Again, take it with a grain of salt. But that's exactly whenever a couple of years after the Great Depression started. So my theory is that the sixth party system is officially gone and that we are entering a brand new one. And my theory's kind of trying to support that is basically with radicalization, um, more so the amount of obviously the division between red and blue, and then basically the progressives becoming more of a thing, and then now that the progressives have gotten a louder voice, it's starting to create a lot of sentiment on the right. So a lot of people on the right, they don't want to they don't want that, and they see it as being more uh shoved down their throat, I guess. And then so the Republicans are starting to come up and say like, hey, we don't like this. And then that's what got Trump elected, and then Trump basically was the lighter that lit the whole match on fire. So Tripster, I mean,
I think Obama lit it on fire, to be honest. Well, I mean,
I would
Democrats
definitely
would
say,
say, a lot of Democrats would state that the current political system is because of Newt Gingrich. He did that impeachment, and they say that made it much more tense, and everything became partisan after that.
yeah,
That's what a lot of older Democrats would say. And a lot of younger Democrats would say, well, Bush sucked, and he did all these things, and the Patriot Act, and the war in Iraq, and this and that. And then Obama came in with the hope and change, and they fought it hook, line, and sinker. And then, once there wasn't that hope and change, and they started to do a lot of this centralization of power in the government, and then this made the Republicans quite pissed off. So as a response, you had the Tea Party movement. So it really all starts, I think, if you really, older Democrats would say it starts with Gingrich. I would probably say it starts with Obama, is when that powder really started to get filled and started to be lit slightly. Trump was an explosion.
yeah.
In a long list of future explosions. So
And
it was an explosive moment, and it wasn't the powder. So Muse is saying Obama's left with failing interventions and a global crash. Well, to be honest, though, that was caused by mainly left-wing policies, though. But that's a nice story for another day. I mean, Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House back then, actually, for 2 years prior to the crash. So, but that's an entire history thing that'll take way too long to explain. But yeah,
technically,
short story short,
the
I think
dominoes
that
started to fall whenever you're talking about the 2008 financial crisis. The dominoes started to fall around 2006 to 2007, especially 2007, because 2007 was whenever the Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy.
yeah, late 2007. But you're specifically trying to state that person was trying to state that Obama was basically unlucky. In reality, to be honest, you disagree. It seems obvious that no, actually, deregulation was not a major factor. It was actually, weirdly enough, there was some overregulation in the markets related to community reinvestment that came and arose from an investment act that was passed in like the 1970s something under Jimmy Carter. And the idea basically, um, the idea basically being that it's all besides the point. But basically, the idea between the Community Reinvestment Act was that there were people who were being redlined. So basically, loosen the standards for minorities to get loans and things like that. Well, some profiteering minds basically are like, well, wait a minute. This also applies to everyone, not just minorities. So if we do apply for loans here and here and here, we can buy this asset, buy this housing price. And so really the bubble started under Bill Clinton around 1990 something. Say 97 to 99 is when housing started to kind of take a uplift. Then we had the stock market bubble that collapsed in 2001 with the advent of 9/11, which broke down the whole stock market, tech bubble that was going on. But because of the 9/11, interest rates went down from 8% or so down to 1%. And those people who were already buying properties using the Community Reinvestment Act to get favorable loans that they couldn't afford because they couldn't be rejected, well, it ended up happening that these people kept doing it more and more in certain areas, hoping to flip back the houses. And when they were doing this, banks were like, "Well, hey, we can't reject them. So how do I compensate myself from making these losing loans? How do I insure myself from making risky loans to then take those loans and make more money off of it?" Essentially, what ended up happening from that, and then I'll close, is there was this whole giant bond market built off of top of houses, securities exactly, that weren't really regulated because it was invented almost. It was phony securities packaged together in tranches. Uh, that bubble began in like 2003, and it became worth like $75 trillion. And then it collapsed in 2006, 2007, with the housing prices starting to go down. Once people started to default because of the recession in 2008 and 2009, Obama inherited a collapsing economy. But past that point, he did little to really fix or help it. Now, we can get back to the whole scenario of what's happening right now. I don't know if the right actually can actually fight. I think if this is going to be a seventh uh, political party system, then the end result of it right now is that it's going to be dominated by Democrats because they don't have much of an opposition. I mean, Republicans right now have to run on a countercultural narrative. Um, and actually, if you look at it, the six-party system was a bit against the norm because Republicans controlled the House for the majority of it, if you look at it. So, or at least half of it, because it's from 1980 to 2021, right? Well, Republicans controlled the House from basically 2000 to 2006. They did that from 1994 to 2006. That's 12 years, and you actually add on to the fact they took it back in 2009 to 2010. So from 2011 to 2018, that's another 6 or 7 years. That's a good half of the time that Republicans controlled the House. When
Yeah.
as you go with the fifth party system, Democrats controlled the House almost entirely throughout that time span. So we might go back into a scenario where that is exactly what happens, is Democrats have a predominant dominance within government once more, while certain states continue to divide more and more, being right. I actually think Obama recovered the economy well materially. Actually, after 5 years of Barack Obama being in presidency, the economy was actually still relatively lower than when it was when he came in terms of jobs. So that was with the printing of several trillion dollars. There's almost nothing Obama did in his second term because Republicans stopped him. So past 2011, Republicans stopped Obama from doing anything, and that's when the recovery actually began. So when people say Barack Obama recovered the economy, I mean he didn't do anything. So really, it happened kind of in spite of him rather than because of him. Uh, as is so often the problem, particularly in America, the economy is dealt with well in terms of growth GDP, but the social situation is never sorted. Interesting.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think,
sounds about accurate.
yeah, yeah.
Like that sounds exactly like American history. It's just like, oh yeah, like because I mean, like after like two of the deadliest wars in world history, we always have these economic booms, and then after those economic booms, then it just becomes prevalent about like maybe a little bit in terms of income inequality, but then it also just comes down to like racial issues, social issues. I mean, the '60s and '70s were completely wholly prevalent of of women's rights, black rights, just the whole kitchen sink,
It's,
basically.
it seems the left is more preoccupied with the economy than the right. um,
What are you sure? Uh,
I think the left is a lot more focused on society than the economy.
yeah, like because I would believe that the left is more just kind of like because yeah they think about it in the economy in terms of like how fair the economy is, and then in one way yeah they I mean you could there's an argument there, but then they're looking at it as more of a like a societal thing instead of an economic thing. If anyone's
Socioeconomic status is their main focus. It's more about the distribution of the economy as opposed to the size. They would rather the economy be absolute crap and everyone be poor than, and also be equitable, than everyone be rich and someone being richer than the other person. That's currently the Democrat Party mantra, which I don't think is economically focused. It's more societal focused. The modern left has good policy proposals on healthcare. No, they don't. Minimum wage. No, they don't. Student loan forgiveness. No, they don't. You want to see good proposals on all three of those things? You look at Sweden, which actually has more market approaches than what the modern left in America are doing. As a matter of fact, it's actually very ironic, but America's right-leaning policies are also not as right as you would think. Some of them are actually kind of to the left of places like Sweden. And then we, oddly enough, have less effective social welfare despite spending more than everyone else and having a more progressive tax system as well in some areas. In general, I think with this new party system, we're going to see that the left becomes much more establishmentarian in their politics. And if the right wing is smart, they become a bit more counterculture-y. They focus on they focus on the culture more than they do the government. I think that's the next step that the Republican Party and people in charge of the Republican Party should really take a look at is, okay, we don't control these giant corporations. We don't have our own tech hubs. We don't have any of this. There's things like Bitcoin. There's all these other stuff that there's a popular sentiment, GameStop, right? There's all these things that right wingers can make arguments for, that they can actually take part in, that have nothing to do with winning elections. Because before you even get to talking about winning elections, you have to actually have some sort of impact, and you actually have to have the capability to have impact. You can't win an election without someone funding your campaign. The problem is the right loves the culture war, but doesn't affect most people in their. No, culture war is definitely affecting everyone in their life, and I think it's something that most people don't know is that the left has engaged in this. But that's besides the point. We have to get back to the topic, actually. In terms of political party strength, I think in 2022, it depends very well on just how bad the Democrats are doing at running the country and how informed people are. If it comes out that Republicans do not put up any type of a cultural fight in the next 2 years, as in like they can't get their word out, they can't articulate why these policies don't work or what's actually happening, and the Democrats are allowed to basically get away with whatever they do. Like, for instance, if no one knows that Syria got bombed, right, and everyone hates war, well, whose fault is that? Republicans are spending their time sharing memes than doing things. They don't actually do anything. So if they're going to keep doing that same strategy of just like reacting without actually being proactive or getting the word out, we may very well see that this focus on what they are focusing on might be useless. You said silly issues like trans people in sports are a waste of time thinking about. Especially when there's literal crimes committed by the other party or something like that. I agree with Ms. Muse. Like when there's literal serious concerns that are out there, like the economy crapping out, or you find out this person did that, or Andrew Cuomo killed thousands of people in a nursing home, for instance, and you decide, hey, let me host a podcast and think I'm going to talk about today. Well, guess what? There's a transsexual medical doctor that Biden's picked. And it's like, is that very important? Or like, does that impact me? No, it really doesn't. I believe the GOP will make gains in 2022. I don't think so. I mean, if the Democrats will win in 2024, I don't. The thing about this, the question that you really should be asking has nothing to do with parties, but more about people.
Yeah.
It's more about how do people perceive it? Because do the Democrats deserve to win more power? Do they deserve to win more, elections? I think the answer to that question is objectively no. Look at how they've run places like California into the ground, or New York City being ran into the ground, or Chicago, right? These places should be flipped. The people running these places are crooked. We know these things. But has anything changed? Are people still voting for the same stuff? The answer is yes. So we get to the question is, why do they keep doing that? And is that going to change between here and now?
Well, the New York governors should be competitive if Andrew Cuomo doesn't resign.
How did you say that?
Yeah. Say that 5 times fast. Speaking of that, I mean, we've been talking about the party system and all that. I would love to come on stream and chat sometime. Oh, definitely. Muse, I know you've been here for a little bit. I would definitely love to have you on. So once you get that done, definitely get with me and we can definitely have a discussion.
If you have a phone, you can just jump right in.
Yeah, or if you have a phone. Okay, so we're go ahead and go on. I want to shoot to kind of like have this about an hour, hour and a half tops.
Sure.
So
So
we're
we
gonna
got
go ahead and
13
move.
minutes then.
Well, I have 20 minutes. I mean, I've been recording for 20 minutes or 40 minutes.
Okay.
Anyway, but we'll go ahead and move on to the Senate. So we'll go ahead and because I have a map pulled up right here. I already filled in a couple of states in, obviously California and New York are not going to be in danger of flipping to the
Whoa.
Republicans.
Oh wait, is that Kirsten Gillibrand that's up for election? No. It's Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer.
Gillibrand,
Chuck Schumer.
is it
No, it's Chuck
Gillibrand
Schumer.
or who is it?
It's
Schumer?
Chuck Schumer.
Oh, it's Schumer.
It's
Okay.
Schumer.
Um,
Yeah.
so
I don't know
we're
why I asked that question. I knew it. I was looking at it earlier.
so if you're looking at this and you're kind of maybe asking a couple of questions, why are a couple of different states not filled in? Because it's more so to kind of leave room for discussion. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about a couple of these, and then I'm gonna hang on until we can fill them in. So I guess first one, I guess we're gonna move from East Coast to West Coast. So we're gonna
They
start
have a
off.
great shot at Texas. Hold up, Muse. Muse, Texas is not up for election this election.
Yeah, I actually got that confused. I actually thought that Texas was having an election, but I totally forgot that we already had an election in 2018 for Ted Cruz and in 2020 for John Cornyn, which John Cornyn actually won his election pretty easily, by
Trump.
by a larger margin than Donald Trump won Texas by, and then by a larger margin, especially than Ted Cruz won in 2018.
Well, Trump got
Um,
more votes, though. The problem with it is, simply put, that John Cornyn had the help of Trump, but he didn't also have an opponent that also had the help of Biden. You know what I'm saying? Like, Biden kind of dragged down whoever the heck the other guy was. But also at the same time, um, Trump uplifted Joe Cornyn or John? John Cornyn, right?
John.
John Cornyn himself, right? He's not a very enigmatic person. He's not very interesting. Um, but when it comes down to it, he was kind of running against nobody. Um, so Trump running against Biden versus whoever that no name Cornyn was going against, it's different than what Ted Cruz had to go through with Beto O'Rourke and all that money being going into his campaign. You know what I'm saying? Like they targeted
Once we get to
Cruz completely.
2024, I definitely do want to talk about Texas because Texas is actually going to be really interesting in 2024.
Yeah, because
But
I don't know if Cruz was going to decide to run because that'd be very risky
that
to
that would
run
be
for
risky.
presidency when you are up for election as Senate in a
Well,
really red state.
actually, that's already happened like within the last 20 years. That happened twice. Not no, not twice. Joe Biden actually in 2008 he ran for Senate in Delaware, and he won his election in Delaware the same night that he was declared the vice president elect of the United States. And then on January before January 20th of 2009, he had to resign his seat because he was inaugurated as the senator of Delaware, and then they had to hold a special election because he had become the vice president.
Paul
Someone
did it, but
else,
he didn't. Rand Paul and Marco Rubio both did it.
yeah, I forgot who. There was someone else that I saw that did it. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and start off with the state of Vermont. The reason that we're talking about Vermont is because eight-term Senator Patrick Leahy is possibly retiring, and there's no announcement yet on whether Patrick Leahy will continue on for another 6-year term. I mean, Patrick Leahy, he is
He was barely
pretty,
talking.
yeah, like he's pretty damn well near old. Let me actually pull it
He was
up, see
awful.
how old he is. He is 80 years old, so if he runs next year, he's gonna be like in his mid 80s by the end of that term.
And the
So
thing about it is, he's already in bad shape. So I don't know why you would decide. Some of these people have really big egos, but it's like if you can't even walk outside and run for office, why are you running for office?
yeah,
How like
and
you're just running off of name recognition at that point and money. Like how you can't even go door to door. Like you probably can't even give a speech. Like, no
I've seen
offense.
him. I've seen him in a couple of Batman movies. He's actually an okay actor. Anyway, but the reason
That's
that
true, but that was 12 years ago. Yeah,
yeah,
it's been a while.
unless the thing about Vermont is that unless whenever Patrick Leahy retires, I mean Patrick Leahy's been able to win his re-elections by pretty wide margins against Republicans, and Vermont is one of the most liberal states in the union. I mean, it elects Bernie Sanders for crying out loud. But
The majority is going to target this one.
the thing about Vermont is that they have a Republican governor. So unless the Democrats just cannot replace Patrick Leahy with someone that is decent and as good as Patrick Leahy was, then I would definitely say that Vermont is going to be sticking with the Democrats. But I mean,
Who replaces him, though, is the question.
yeah, that's the question: is that who will replace him? Let me actually see if there's any
Will it be
news on
someone
that.
that's more radical? Will it be some random person?
Apparently, Republican Governor Phil Scott of Vermont says there's a potentiality of him running for that Senate seat. So that would be an interesting, because he's a Republican governor. So if
He's
he can get
also
elected,
supposedly one of the more popular governors.
he's very popular, and that would be a game changer if Vermont could actually flip over to the Republicans. Um, which I forgot the last time that they actually voted for a Republican. I can't remember.
I think
But
about like 20 years ago, before this whole partisan politics thing has
I think it
happened.
was 84. Yeah, 84. 84,
84?
88.
How long has
Right.
Patrick Leahy been there?
Patrick Leahy's been in the Senate since, let me
I guess
look.
84. Oh, actually, no.
He's
I didn't Bernie Sanders replace a Republican or something like that in a special
74.
election? Wait, he's been in office since 74. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, he was
Um,
elected in 74.
Hold up, I think Bernie Sanders replaced someone in a special election. That's how he became senator in 1994, right? Oh no, 2007.
2000, yeah, he got elected in 2006, inaugurated in 2007.
Jim Jeffries.
Moving on to Pennsylvania, what's your thoughts
Jim
on
Jeffries was the
Pennsylvania?
last Republican senator.
Of Vermont?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it was in 2001 that he switched to independent.
Okay.
So,
So,
so not that long.
moving on to Pennsylvania, what's your thoughts on Pennsylvania?
Pat Toomey. I feel like I've never had much confidence in Pennsylvania being a red state. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
But to be honest, it depends on the Democrats being so bad. If Biden really screws up, I think it comes down to how energized are Republicans and how unified will they be.
And that's
Because
the
I don't think
thing.
Democrats are going to really run anyone super strong in Pennsylvania, but Republicans could possibly like come out of nowhere and be like, "No, we don't like what the direction this country is going," and actually surprise people by getting someone in there, like they did in Indiana in 2018. So it can happen. It could possibly happen.
There's a possibility, and once we get down to Georgia, I'm definitely gonna kind of go at length about this. I mean, there's probably a lot of disappointed voters in a lot of different states, maybe even Pennsylvania. Obviously, I don't know for sure, but the thing is that I mean, Biden basically said on the day of the special election in Georgia, and I need to be able to research this to see if this was one of the reasons why they voted Democrats in, is because Biden basically said you guys will like it was about the $2,000, and then he said vote for Warnock and Ossoff and you will get your $2,000. And then as soon as Biden gets into office, and actually I think he said this a couple of days before he was inaugurated into office, he said no, you're getting $1,400. And that has upset a lot of progressives, and that possibly, and that's that, and I agree with you too, where you're basically saying it really depends on how the Democrats, policy wise, and I guess COVID wise too.
Think about what they did with fracking in particular, automatically to the union workers.
Yeah,
That's
and
automatically going to hurt them in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, and Iowa,
maybe even New Mexico
and
at one
Ohio.
point. I
Oh, New
mean,
Mexico is weird. They like making themselves suck. I don't know. They keep voting left and left. I thought they would have flipped, and then I just like they no, they keep voting. They voted for a Green New Deal and lost jobs, and it's like, well, what did you expect? I don't. They haven't grown. Their economy hasn't grown in like 12 years. It's
Frisk,
weird.
Frisky Island, but doesn't 1400 plus 600 equal 2000? Yes, that I mean that is the
But
math
that's not what they said
calculation.
though.
But that's
Trump was
not what
like
they
he needed
said.
2,000.
If you really want to take it on what they said, 600 was a down payment.
That's just gaslighting. That's
I
gaslighting.
guess a little bit
Don't gaslight the American public. I mean,
because if
some of
you
you guys are stupid, but no one thought that. All right, everyone thought that they were saying, give us the vote.
yeah, because
We'll
they
give
were
you a two
supposed to
thousand dollar
do
check.
they were basically making it sound like it was going to be it was going to be 600 on top of 2000. Yes, he did say that it was going to be a down payment. But whenever you literally right before an election, you say Warnock and Ossoff are gonna give you $2,000. Purdue and Loeffler are not going to give you $2,000. And I'm just going off of his own words. But the thing about that is that whenever you do that, and especially in a time like now, where you're like, well, because he got into office, things change, policies change, blah 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 blah. I understand that,
I so
but
hate politics.
so do I. But it's too interesting.
Yeah.
The thing about that is like, yes, things do change, but whenever you're kind of like, you're not even communicating because I mean, Trump, as annoying as he was basically telling everyone exactly what he wanted on Twitter, as annoying as that was. But then Biden comes in, he's not communicating with the people. He's
I
not.
never understood is if you're annoyed by someone tweeting, just don't read the tweets.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing. The only other thing about that is because it's like, oh well, like he's the president of the United States. Like we have to pay attention to it. But
No, you don't. You weren't paying attention to what Obama said. Why are you going to pay attention now? Go back into your cave. All right. You don't have to watch the tweets if you don't care. You weren't paying attention when Obama said something. So why pay attention now? Like you
and
can't selectively pay attention and then get mad when you're like, this guy, he's discussing political things.
the only other
So,
thing about the $2,000 is the only thing about the $2,000 is, I mean, for one thing, yeah, again, 600 plus 1400 does equal 2,000. But the 600 was sent to us back in December, about the end of December, beginning of January. It's a completely different what do you call it, month. I mean, people still have bills to pay. People still have some sort of a they still have a need because I mean they've already gone 1 month without it, and then because Congress is already saying like well I mean we can't do it right now, blah 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 blah. But then whenever it comes to the 1400, they're saying it's because they can't afford it, and then whenever it comes to that, it's a 1.9
yeah.
trillion-dollar stimulus plan. So how are you going to spend 1.9 trillion dollars and then give all that money to badly run states and then turn around and say, "Oh, well, I mean,
So
as Nancy Pelosi said it,
PG,
people get
there's a
crumbs."
there's a comment here. Well, Nancy Pelosi is the one giving crumbs. To be honest with you. Um, but she's the one saying I mean, she's spending 1.9 trillion dollars and giving you literal crumbs. That's amazing. She complains about a tax cut that lowers tax revenue supposedly by $1 trillion every year, but she spends 50 or $5 to $6 trillion on her stimulus bills that almost only $600 billion in total go to the American public. That's bullshit. But to Muse, your nation has a minimum wage of 7.2 pounds. That's actually lower than most states in the United States of America. So your own country has a lower minimum wage than America. It also has a higher tax on the poor than in America. In terms of lack of a proper healthcare system, actually, if you were to deduct the cost of the taxes that you may be paying relative to where you live, I could work as a middle class person in Chicago and actually have lower tax benefits and lower healthcare costs and get more, quicker, and better healthcare in America than someone else in a place like the United Kingdom. So I guess if you make $0 whatsoever, if you don't make a minimum wage job, say maybe you work in a minimum wage job and uh, yeah, Kingdom, sure that may benefit you, but in America, actually, most people don't work minimum wage, and actually minimum wage is already still higher. Anyway, but the minimum wage doesn't help anyone actually because it's economics. You'd have to look it up and understand it. But
Yeah.
yeah, in terms of crumbs, both sides were very annoying, and I had no clue about the
Yeah,
economy.
I would definitely agree that both sides are extremely annoying whenever it's coming to this.
I work in the government actually. It's say 20. It's 20 £8 20. What's £8 20 in your country? What is actually what is the cost of fuel per liter in your country compared to America? And come back to me with that one.
And
I was
see,
like, what's the
whenever
cost
it
of
comes,
milk
I had a
in your country?
conversation. I had a conversation about this on another stream the other day, and basically what we were kind of talking about is the thing about minimum wage. $15 an hour. What's the cost of living in?
Is that going to hurt Democrats in the Senate? Actually,
Possibly.
not not picking
I
that up.
really, I really want to wait until we can really kind of define what's going to happen, because whenever, at least at the end of this year, we'll definitely have a really good idea, because at the end of this year we'll definitely know the candidates in a lot of different swing districts and states and all that. But the thing about the minimum wage, and then we'll go ahead and keep talking about the Senate. And I had a conversation about this yesterday or the day before. Basically, what I kind of think about the minimum wage is that 7.25, yes. I honestly agree that 7.25 is very low for a minimum wage, especially compared to a lot of other countries. Um, but the thing about the minimum wage is, I guess, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, our minimum wage in the United States was basically a law that was passed saying this is the amount of money that you have to pay your employees. And then, Congress basically said we're not going to touch it. 7.25 is all you're going to get. I mean, they raised it from like $3 to $5 and then to 7.25.
Here's a question,
The
right? So if we went from $3 to $6, and all this was under Nancy Pelosi both times. So we raised the minimum wage in 2007, right? Did that actually increase wages in 2007, or did we go into a depression?
Went into a depression.
We raised wages in 2010. Does that do anything? Did we actually see wage growth in 2010?
Did they
Or
raise
did
it to
wages go down?
7.25 in 2010?
Yes,
Okay.
2009, 2010. Did that improve anything, or did it actually increase unemployment?
Unemployment went up to like 10% by 2012.
And we didn't have small business growth in terms of jobs until 2014, right? So what is the argument here? Are we going to keep raising the minimum wage every 5 seconds, and then growth is just going to come
I
out of
wouldn't say
nowhere?
it's every
Why
five
stop it?
seconds.
Well, hold up. Well, that's the argument. They're going to do it and phase it in every single year. They're saying, well, if we are going to take the 15 minimum wage, we're going to start at like some wage, raise it up by $1, so that by 2025 we're up to 15, and then we're just going to keep doing it past this
So
point.
so
Why stop at 15? Why
yeah,
stop at 15? Because that
that's
time
actually where I
inflation
was
would make
gonna
15 small,
that's actually where I
right?
was gonna go on, is that the $15 minimum wage, and again I had the conversation about this the other day. Even the people that are pushing for the $15 minimum wage, they even say that fifteen
Pause, pause,
dollars
pause, pause,
is
pause, pause, pause,
too
pause, 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 pause.
is
Hold
too
up. I have
low.
to respond to this comment. This person's correlation does not mean causation. Exactly. But here's the thing. You guys are saying, right, that if you were to increase the minimum wage, that the people who are poor would actually have practically benefited from this. No one benefited from the prior minimum wage increases. So why do we keep increasing the minimum wage? They did it in Seattle again. What we're not seeing the same results. Poverty rate didn't go down magically in Seattle. Homelessness didn't go down in Seattle. It went up. So we're seeing more people actually become more homeless, more people struggling to make the ends meet, their hours go down. So they're actually making a similar pay, just having to do more of the work. I mean, look at the retail sector. If you ever worked a retail job, you raise the minimum wage, people get fired, you have to make up the work that is now missed by a less employed amount of capital. So I'm working at Target. They raised the minimum wage of their jobs to $15 an hour, but they're not hiring the same number of workers.
I thought
They're
I
keeping it.
thought Target
They're
already
keeping a
had like
similar.
their minimum at 15.
That's what I'm saying. They raised it up to 15, but they let the people go. So they either they able to decrease your work to 15 hours, or they are hiring less people. And so when the labor demands are so high, there's like a matter of fact, I worked at Target in 2019. And the argument was, well, we're paying you $15 an hour, so we're expecting you to work this hard.
So,
With the increase in minimum wage, they expect you to do more and more with less and less.
so the
So
thing
you
about
raise these wages, people's work-life balance will get worse. They may be making slightly more, or they may not even have a job opportunity at all. That's what happens when you raise the minimum wage. It actually doesn't help people who are poor. It gives them less economic opportunity, and then they end up getting compensated less
because
for doing way more hard work because
the
they have
people
less
who don't,
workers helping them out on the shift.
it might help out the people that already have the job, but then the people who already have the job are going to lose it because that company can't pay them. But then the people who don't have a job, I've actually seen some research that basically says that the people who don't have a job and then try to get a job, they can't do that because they're already having enough trouble with the people they're trying to pay then. And doing it by state basis, that is a little bit easier because the state can actually, do some analysis and figure out a very, effective way of doing it. Places like Seattle, yes, they have increased their minimum wage to $15 an hour. Um, and I was trying to get to this earlier. Basically, and there's a couple of comments in here. I kind
For
of agree with what
employees,
Backstar.
okay, so
I agree with
oh
what
no,
Backstar's saying is that the issue is that we can't increase it this high within a short amount of time, and I completely
the
agree with that.
issue is that minimum wage is not even, it's just bad policy. It's a price floor that has no relevance. I mean, suppose you actually are making minimum wage. There's a reason you're making minimum wage. It's not because the business doesn't want to pay you more. It's that that's just what you're worth. If you were worth more, you would be getting paid minimum wage. So actually, it's a price floor, and you accepted to take the job at minimum wage, right?
Yeah,
For a variety of reasons. If you could get paid more, you would be working elsewhere. I wouldn't accept a job getting paid $8 an hour when the minimum wage in Ohio is $8.25, right? I'm
that's
one
why
of
you
those
send
smart men.
out like a bunch of applications, and then you're most likely going to be
Right.
looking at how much that job is paying and everything. So it's
Exactly. I research that all the time. And my first job, I got paid minimum wage. And I worked at the library. Why did I do that? Because I live in the rural county. All right. They paid me $7.25, which I think was actually lower than the state minimum wage. It was 8.18. $8.18 per hour. That's very small. It was barely a subsistence wage for one person to live and make my rent, right? But I did it because I was like, well, it's a job opportunity in a place that didn't have many job opportunities. If I had more choices in terms of jobs, I would take a better job, right? But guess what? Um, I come to Columbus, right? I work at Target. It was my choice to take the job at Target. I get paid $13 an hour there, right? I leave Target. Now I work for the government. I get $10 an hour. I decided to take the pay cut. That's up to me that I took that pay cut. I wanted it because I think I can afford it. But here's the thing. It's entirely up to me what I did. It's entirely voluntary. If I wanted to struggle and starve, I could easily quit my job, right? You have to always do some amount of work to live. Raising the minimum wage does not remove that requirement. It just makes it harder for people who already struggle to get a good job at whatever wage. Uh, makes it harder for them to even get a job to begin with, to even get a chance to even provide for themselves. So if you immigrant, you have to work in the company.
so basically another thing that I was trying to talk about is basically with the minimum wage. I don't know if my video is buffering right now. What's going on? I think I just hit the hour mark, so I think the video is having a little bit of trouble because it's trying to calibrate. So give it a second.
I can hear you.
Okay. You can't hear me?
No, I can hear you now.
Okay, was there an issue there?
Yeah, you went silent.
Okay. Okay, so basically what I was trying to say, basically with the minimum wage, like again, 725 whenever you're looking at it from face value, yes, 725 is very low. So, and the thing about minimum wage is, and this is the point that I was trying to get to, and I'll go ahead and say it real quick. So basically, whenever you're, because people are saying like if you raise the minimum wage then the prices are going to go up. And I mean with the stimulus packages, the several trillion-dollar stimulus packages that we've been spending and spending and spending on COVID itself. I mean, I think more now, especially after this COVID package gets passed, more than 50% of the money that is in circulation right now or in the future is going to be produced between December or March 2020 and now, within the past year. So that on top of the minimum wage, that could actually contribute to some sort of increase in inflation. I don't think it's going to be hyperinflation. I don't think it's going to be like a world-ending event about inflation, but there are going to be some rising prices because it's going to be on a national level. It's not just going to be one state or one city raising the minimum wage. It's going to be the entire country, and then everyone is going to have that. Not only are you going to have the employment issues,
So
you're going to have issues with the money supply. But then, and this is what I was talking about on the other stream, is that the and someone actually said this earlier. Let me actually go back onto their comment.
over here sound like Peter Schiff.
It says the minimum wage isn't designed to live on. So if you want to design the minimum wage, because this would be a very complicated bill, even pegging it to inflation might not work, because if it's going to go up and down according to inflation, or maybe up and then stay whenever inflation, I guess, goes down. Um, the thing about that is that you're accounting for inflation, but you're not accounting for the most important factor whenever it comes to the amount of money that you need to live, which is called the cost of living, or COL. The cost of living across this country is different. North Carolina, Texas, California, New York. It is not the same amount of money to
Gas
live
prices are like
in.
$4 right now in California, but like $2.70
Yeah,
here. But if we didn't have gas taxes, our gas would be $2.20 in Ohio. So that's just an example of a major living cost in America
and
that's
that's
differing by the city even by a
that's
lot.
the thing about that, is that a lot of these people, they're even saying like, and I would say this before, like where I was saying like we need to peg it to inflation. But then now that I think about pegging it to inflation, I'm thinking about it like you really need to think about accounting for cost of living, and then that's why it really shouldn't be a federal issue.
Um,
The federal one, I mean, maybe it could go up $10, $12 max,
there should
$15.
be. I'm gonna make a nice little hot take. There should be, and I'm going to an economics lecture to back it up here. There should be no minimum wage whatsoever, none.
You want
And
to
I'll explain
explain?
why. Yeah, because the argument that you guys are all making are symptoms of a problem, and you're not looking at the reasons people are actually having this problem. You're saying, well, people can't get paid enough money to actually live on their own. They must do work and they don't have all these job opportunities. It's like, okay, but 99% of adults don't have this problem. They're not working minimum wage in America. So we have about what? How many youth people, right? Why is it that people are working these minimum wage jobs? What are minimum wage jobs? What is considered to be minimum wage jobs in America? These are jobs that are practically low skill, and I've done them. I'm not saying I'm going to be like some type of elitist, but the thing is, the problem we're actually looking at here, in which white people are not able to provide for their families, are not able to develop, into becoming part of the middle class, is they don't have access to proper education. They don't have access to proper health and utilities. They don't have proper access to the right services to lift themselves up, right? And the thing is, we're looking at, well, we should make the minimum wage. That doesn't actually solve the problem. The problem is they can't provide for themselves. They need to develop more skills, more labor intensive abilities that allow them to actually take their labor and go somewhere so they don't have to be stuck in wage jobs. They should need to develop their abilities, and there's no one helping them develop their abilities. So as long as you increase the minimum wage, all you are doing is basically trying to lift up people. And in trying to lift up people, you're actually bringing them down, because when you increase minimum wage, you're just increasing the cost of living. Anytime you increase the cost of the minimum wage, it's going to be transferred into your consumption goods. And who consumes these goods? Well, the poor do. All right. If I go to Walmart and I'm going to Walmart and you raise the minimum wage and they have to pay more people more money, who's paying for it? I would be paying for it. You know who doesn't care whether or not my groceries go up $100 or not? Someone that's in the middle class. They don't care. Someone that's rich. They don't care. You know who doesn't care about losing those job opportunities in Walmart or McDonald's or your local small business? Poor people or the basic people in the middle class. Like they themselves are going to be bearing the brunt of these costs of these policies, right? And they will get zero benefit from it because the costs always outweigh the benefit because minimum wages do not fix the problem. It's about efficiency, it's about competitiveness, and it's about your ability to provide. If you don't look at that and figure out why people can't do these things, why can't they compete in the labor market to get higher jobs? Why are there no job opportunities for these people? Then you're just really covering over the problem with a solution that actually doesn't solution like this. Just like as you said, you can peg it to the cost of living, but what does that do? Say I'm in Los Angeles and the cost of living goes up 6% every year. Well, then I raise the minimum wage 6% every year. Oh, that makes inflation go up 10%. Now 12%. Now 15%. Now 18%. 20%. 25, 26, 50, 60, 90. It leads to hyperinflation. Why? Because you're tracking it. You're literally increasing the cost of it. And it just is a feedback loop. Oh, well, hey, you raised the minimum wage 20% to account for inflation. Now I got to raise prices 20% on top of the original inflation that I originally had to deal with last year.
Yeah.
And who's getting benefit from that? No one. No one.
Because you're only looking at it.
And as you raise it up and up and up, you get to a certain point where people aren't even going to hire people anymore. You get to the point where you raise it up to $25 minimum wage or something like that. And they're like, well, I don't need a fry cook. I'll get a fry robot then for that car. For that price, I don't need you. So then no one gets hired if you don't have a college degree. No, you don't get hired. So then it goes to service sector. It's just you go to Walmart, it's going to be one of those walk-in Amazon stores that you go in there with your phone and you're like, and then it's staffed by robots. And then there's probably one person that's got a college degree in IT who's just managing the store. Make sure every single robot's working right, and that person gets paid $80,000, right? But everyone else, all those other jobs, they're gone, replaceable, completely gone. And that's what ends up happening. It'll be automated if you raise the cost eventually to a certain point. And then what? What are those poor people supposed to do? You're going to teach them, you're going to say, hey, learn to code and put them out of work?
Learn to code. Had a nickel for every time I've heard that.
Yeah, what point are you going to get to that?
Because it's like...
I don't understand why we aren't addressing the actual problem. Like, I grew up poor. The reason we are poor is not because we need the government to come in and raise our minimum wage. It's because we don't have the right job opportunities. We don't have the skills and we don't have the connections to help us get better jobs. That's why people feel like they're focused and stuck in, the same sector. Like I can work in McDonald's or I could work at Burger King. Like, wow, it's got a ceiling on it at some point. Doesn't matter how good you are. You're going to have to figure out a way to acquire more stuff. And I'm not economically a globalist at all, actually. That's actually another thing that's going to worry yourself about minimum wage. You raise minimum wage, people are going to start hiring people illegally. You'll be shocked, but one of my friends, his dad ran a restaurant, and he told me, oh, a lot of people who work at the restaurant are illegal immigrants.
Really?
I was like, really? Yeah. So even Americans will stop being hired in some of these cities. They'll just start hiring people illegally. There'll be an underground economy. It's like either they'll replace you with robots. If they can't do that, they'll hire someone illegally. And then you have that question of like, oh, now you have human trafficking to get more workers into America. That's already kind of the rule when it comes to things like lawn care. Right? Especially if you go down to the border countries. You're in Texas. You tell me, how does that work? Raise minimum wage to 15, 20. How's that gonna work?
They're already sending a lot of illegal immigrants to some of the border cities, but they have them in overflow facilities apparently instead of calling them camps. Yeah. And that's the only other thing. And then plus, I don't know. It's very complicated, and
so now look at this. See, so the government increases the incompatibility of the American worker And then they wonder why the American worker is not getting hired. So then to solve that problem, we need protectionism, which requires a bigger government. So the problem that the government started. At what point do you start to realize, like, oh, this left-wing populism does not help poor people. It just literally puts them through a ringer and takes any job opportunity away from them. That's why I'm no longer on the left. I used to be on the left a long time ago. But then when you research that, oh, this environmental policy increases the cost of living on every single person that's poor. So when gas prices hit $5 a gallon, I'm making $7 on minimum wage. I can't live in California. Why can't I live on a $7.25? Think about this. In California, 1 gallon of gas just to get to work in the morning would be half my 1 hour salary. But you go to Texas, and it's $1.98. Hey, you want to set the minimum wage the same.
Hey, man, thank you so much for giving me the minimum wage for recording for an hour. I got paid minimum wage for making this live stream. Thank you so much, AMN, for donating. I appreciate it.
I didn't even know you had that thing activated. Actually, that's nice.
Super chats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten a ton of money on a couple of streams.
I'm gonna like this. I'm gonna like our own stream.
There's one stream where I made like $300, $400 off of it, off of just super chats.
Was it on my end or your end?
That was on your end. That's
not that.
Yeah.
Weird things.
Yeah, I know.
That was weird.
All right, so we've been recording or streaming for about an hour and 16. Do you want to continue to talk about the Senate, or do you want to wrap it up here?
All right, let's quickly go down to the governorship and Trumpism. And I mean, literally quickly. So we have a couple governors, Ron DeSantis, Gavin Newsom, who I think is up for election, Mike DeWine, and Laura Kelly, Kansas. Kristi Noem is also going to be up for re-election. So there are two people there that are very important in terms of presidential politics, Ron DeSantis and Kristi Noem. If Ron DeSantis wins his re-election, right, what ends up happening there is by what margin? How viable is he as a political candidate? I would use that to guide things. Like, because a lot of people are trying to say Ron DeSantis can be a potential successor to the whole Trumpism movement. He's got the politics of Donald Trump, the policies of him, but not exactly the personality. He fights, but he's more of an intellectual. So he's like a technocrat. My question is he entertaining enough, to really lift himself up? Because I remember when he ran at first, he was a very weak candidate in Florida back in 2018.
Yeah, I remember
now he's
that.
starting to rise. But the thing is, he's not exactly exciting. If you ever listen to him, he's not the most entertaining politician. And so you get like it's like that Ted Cruz thing or Rand Paul. It's like they are good at policy, but will they have that likability factor? Because like him or hate him, Trump was very entertaining. He'll draw a giant crowd on top of having the good policy. Ron DeSantis has good policy, but will he have enough of a persona to catch on and get enough followers to really actually do something? Likewise, Kristi Noem has that personality that people like, but does she have the policy? Like, she has Trump's policies, but people don't really think of her as some intellectual beast, some political mastermind who can come around and do a lot of things and get a lot of things done. She just seems like a person that she says things that people like and she believes them, but she's not exactly an intellectual force. Consistent in terms of policy, people tend to think of her as, she's okay. And that may hurt her, because she actually has the personality, and that's why she's third now. She was originally the favorite. She was campaigning all of 2018, 2020, all over the place. But Ron DeSantis just sitting around governing his state, well, it's actually showing some big results. Laura Kelly of Kansas, she's a Democrat up for re-election. We shall see. It's a very red state typically. So she barely ran and won last time. She won by actually 8% against Chris Kobach. The reason she won was because the establishment Republicans did not back Chris Kobach. And he was apparently too controversial for many people in the suburbs.
So the governor of Kansas, was that a Trumpist
Chris
candidate
Kobach
that
was a
run?
huge Trump guy.
I
He was
knew,
a very huge Trump guy.
Okay,
He
so
was involved in the whole voter verification thing
yeah.
in 2017, and after that, the establishment Republicans just decided, oh, we're going to all endorse Laura Kelly, and so Kansas has been stuck with that ever since 2018. Um, she'll be up for re-election. Mike DeWine has pissed off everybody in Ohio, except for maybe a couple Democrats. Um, his entire position within the entire state is very contentious. Originally, he was told by us when he ran the first time was that he was going to single-handedly just run a one term, but it looks like he shifted now that he's actually in office and he doesn't want to give it up. So what may happen here, Mike DeWine could run for a second term, but he may not be strong. He may actually get primaried. If that is the case, Ohio is going to be crazy in 2022.
But he
Because
hasn't stated yet.
the Senate is, yeah. So the Senate is wide open. The governor's seat will be wide open. Lieutenant governor will be wide open. And all the House reps will also still be up to for election. And so we have about 4 or 5 different, major statewide leaders on either side that may decide to run for any of these positions, the Senate and the House and the state governor. So we will see about Ohio. Ohio is going to be churning. Gavin Newsom, is he actually really going to even stay in office? He might very well get recalled, but I feel like Democrats will vote for him regardless. Who
They would
knows?
vote, I mean, when they vote for a Democrat, regardless whether it's Gavin Newsom or anyone
I think
else.
the whole idea is that Republicans are hoping to recall him and steal the election by having a Democrat run under. So what is happening is like they want to have a Democrat primary him in the recall and then have only one Republican running. And so both Democrats get like maybe 60% of the vote combined, right? But like together, it's like Gavin Newsom gets 40 and the other Democrat gets 20. And then just because it's a whoever has the most votes type thing, as opposed to just like majority rule. What ends up happening is Gavin Newsom would lose in that scenario to whoever the Republican is. And the Republican that they are planning on running is Trump supporting
Well, the thing about
gay rights
California,
activist / ambassador, what's his name? Rick Grinnell.
the thing
So
about
that's the plan.
California is that like they're like if it went to a recall election, basically it would be a jungle. It would be a jungle
That's what I was saying.
primary.
You could have 2 Democrats on the same ballot. That's the
Yeah,
plan. It's like that. Is
basically.
only allow one Republican run for that ballot, while the Democrats are all split. And as such, the Republican will win because there's only one Republican and all Republicans get behind one candidate. Well, if all the Democrats are everywhere, Newsom's going to be in second place. So he can't
Uh,
win, and he loses. And then in 2022, it may be a Republican in California leading the state. Now, the question is, would that incumbency advantage help? I don't know. And would the Democrats just allow this to happen? That's another thing. Would they literally just allow someone to primary Gavin Newsom? I
in
don't
like one
know.
of the safest states in their box.
Yeah, that's like it's like assuming that the
The
Democrats are
last time
just
that
actually
happened, I mean,
stupid.
it's not the
It happened. It
it
happened in
happened in 2003.
2002. Yeah, 2002. It happened in 2002. So like, I mean, this is like assuming the Democrats are just completely stupid. But they could be. They
Uh,
could be cocky with it. You
moving on
know.
to Arizona, what do you think about Arizona?
What about Arizona?
Apparently, Arizona's up for election in 2022.
Oh, the governor.
Yeah, governor.
Hmm. I feel like the governor really sucked at maintaining the state from being blue. So now it's going to be blue forever more.
Possibly. I can put that in the lean column.
Yeah.
Georgia, do you think the same thing about Georgia? Georgia and Arizona seem to be shifting
Oh.
very much toward the
Well,
Democrats.
notice how they did. They changed the voter registration and all that stuff. So now you can't do the same thing that they allowed for the 2020 election. They waited until Trump got out of office to do something. But, hey, they changed the rules right before the election and they changed it right back. So this is one shifty governor, and that's one shifty Secretary of State. And they both are, I think, credibly accused of voter fraud. So, in my estimation, I would put them both as solidly red because they'll just do voter fraud for themselves. Yeah, that's my accusation. I'm going to stick with it. I'm
Where
going to stay red.
you're gonna get me taken down. Freaking vote all that voter fraud. crap
Except for
and
I'm saying Republicans are the ones doing it, not Democrats.
oh god.
Hmm.
For right now, I guess we could just leave Georgia in the lean column.
Yeah,
Only
of
a
course, of course.
couple of seat Republicans would still,
Uh,
so long as I don't know what's going on with Larry Hogan in Maryland.
well,
But so long as
is he
Vermont
term limited?
easy, let me look. 2022. Think I don't know if they have a
Oh yeah, Larry Hogan may try to run for president. Actually,
Larry Hogan is term limited. They cannot run more than 2 terms.
yeah, he's gonna probably try to run for president. I know he's been trying, so I can honestly see him and Nikki Haley trying to do something.
Larry Hogan?
Yeah, him and
Oh God, they're gonna Ross Perot themselves.
oh,
You know,
that's it.
I
You
wonder
can't just
how
say that.
many. I wonder how many more Ross Perots we're about to get within the next like 2 election cycles.
If Democrats are clever, what they would do is if Trump won, and they already tried this before. They did like 3 Ross Perot's in 2016. It ended
And
up happening that the Ross Perot's actually took votes from Hillary.
from them, yeah.
Yeah. So, but this time I think it'd be slightly different because now they can prepare in time for it. They can pick someone. And Nikki Haley I don't think I like her. I never liked her. I don't know who likes her. I don't know why people liked her for like 2 years ago, but now they hate her because they finally came to the realization that I've known for the longest time. I'm like, she's a neocon. She's like a Bushite. That's something that's a term that I came up with that somehow is other people have now adopted. I don't even know how they found out about the word Bushite, but it's actually a thing people talk about now. And I'm like, wow, interesting. Other people found out a similar term that I just been using for years.
On the poll that
Uh,
I made on my channel,
she's at like what is it?
Nikki Haley actually came in third, because I asked like Trump, Cheney,
You have a
Haley,
younger audience, right? So like some
uh,
people in college.
not more so in college. According to my analytics, I don't know how many people lie about their
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
Um,
So I think what's interesting about people like Nikki Haley or Bush, they are very popular among people they grew up in the suburbs, rich families, right? Elite type Republicans. So people who grew up in you know cushy neighborhoods, right? And they're like, who I'd like? Someone like Nikki Haley. And I think in a way it's because they themselves are a bit out of touch. Um, Socially and economically with what most people really actually care about and like. Like for them, they want to have the neocon image of the American, right?
yeah.
Which is, God, America, we're great because of God. We're God's land, God's country, but also let's go invade these non-living God motherfuckers in the Middle East. You gotta make them respect us because we are God's land. American freedom, herder. But no, like that's the type, and I don't know why I just like stereotyped a bunch of elitist Republicans. They don't sound like them. Gave them a country accent. Maybe it's because I don't like Bush, but but you get what I'm saying. Like those people want to go back to that era, and they don't care the social or economic cost that puts on the nation or the realm. They think America should be more activist. So I can see Nikki Haley having that neocon right image, and she could turn that into something. But I feel like that's like the Lincoln Project. Again, we get back into the whole like, is this really a majority of the people in the party? I don't think
Yeah.
so. I don't, not anymore. I think maybe if it was 2012, that was their last shot, to do something. Mitt Romney had that coalition of, Tea Party people and um, neocons, but it just did not hold over. And Trump basically said, fuck the neocons. And the neocons went and switched to the Democrat Party now. So Nikki Haley would have to bring them back. And I'm not certain they want to switch back. I think these neocons have never really held much of a conservative virtue to begin with. So in terms of who is really going to run and win in 2020, I would honestly say I like Ron DeSantis. I just don't know if he's ready yet because he needs to get his name recognition up and he needs to increase his charisma. So maybe another 4 years, maybe in 2028, one more experience under him, 2 terms as governor, he can move to the Senate, and then bam, he wins the election in 2026, replacing Rick Scott, and after that, he can become maybe president in 2028. But I would rather have Trump come back in 2024. And I think a lot of people, if they see how bad Biden does,
It all really
Biden does
depends on
bad,
how Biden is, because if Biden just kind of like,
if he bows out and
betrays.
Kamala get pushed, right? So if Biden doesn't even run for re-election, or he has to retire, and we get Kamala Harris, that's gonna really mean Trump's coming back for certain.
Yeah, like if they put Kamala in there, like they're, ooh, that's gonna. I really don't think that Kamala would win in that case. But if that's it, I could go ahead and wrap it up here. We've been streaming for about an hour and a half. For those who are just now joining, sorry that you joined in at the very last moment. But we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you all for joining in and being active on this stream. I really enjoyed reading all the chat. And even though we were supposed to talk about a couple other things and we didn't really get to do it because we started at length talking about minimum wage.
I think we actually got to the topics, though. We ended up getting down to who will lead the party and Trumpism alive. That was what we started off with.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually a really productive stream.
Yeah. The one thing we didn't really get to was talking about Richard Burr and Ron John. Well, even, or at least Murkowski.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about like Alaska or some of the people. But Roastworthy says I enjoyed this cast. Yeah, definitely. So I really want to shoot to get these things up every week. So if anyone wants to kind of like join in on a discussion and all of these streams, I'm gonna try to get these out like at least once a week. Which honestly, I mean, I was able to do it last week and I was able to do it this week. So I think I'm definitely going to be doing this next week. If anyone wants to join me next week, definitely do get with me on Discord and we can.
Yeah. I just want to say two things.
Yeah.
First of all, CPAC is in Florida, so it's his home state. And honestly, Ron DeSantis is loved there, and so is Trump. So props to Ron DeSantis, but he's also it's CPAC. It's at literally Florida. So Ron DeSantis could win the Republican primary, but would he win in the general? Was my question. In the general, it has to be everywhere. But also, not just that. Furthermore, you guys did a great job in this conversation. Thank you guys. Leave a like and share this video with other people because you guys did a really great job. And look at this comment section, by the way. There are a lot of people who are actually on the left.
Yeah, like
people who are even conservative, and they're actually having a civil discussion right now in the comments. And so I was going to say, good job, guys. You don't really see that often, where people are respectfully disagreeing and are able to listen to other people's opinions, whether it be the minimum wage or someone being libertarian or someone hating war, or someone liking war, or whatever.
It sucks that we have to congratulate people for that right now because I hate that too. I hate how a lot of people right now, and I've had this problem, like especially in real life, that people just don't want to respect your views. Like I respect anyone regardless of their political beliefs. So to see, I mean, I've had a couple of issues in a couple of past streams, but on this stream, guys, I absolutely appreciate that we got progressives, liberals, conservatives, and everyone could just have a really, really like just peaceful, civil conversation. And the times we're in right now, a lot of people don't want to have those civil conversations. So I really do appreciate that you guys are able to have these civil conversations. So definitely, everyone that's here right now, definitely do join us next week, and we will be back next week, and we'll figure out what we can talk about next week. But if anyone does want to join me, definitely do get with me on Discord, and we can have a discussion next week, and we can discuss just politics, geopolitics, world politics, anything. So guys, if you guys like this, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Super chatting is always appreciated. Become a member of this channel, and then you can get early access to content whenever I do make it. So again, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will see you guys next week. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys there.